Welcome back. Welcome back to the FMS Toyota FJ40 build series, part 5. We're going to get into a couple more mods today. I have this winch, kind of a cheapy winch I got off Amazon. I'll link it in the description. We're going to see how well it works. It came with a winch controller that I can use directly from my radio, so that's cool. And I picked up some LED lights. Let's see if I can get to any of this today. I will eventually just order a simple light control switch so I can just turn all the lights on and off. I painted the window trim here black so it looks more like the real rubber seal around the windows. I'll show you guys in this video how I did that. Pretty simple, just using a Sharpie paint marker. And I just got these little recovery boards mounted up on top. So that looks pretty cool. I'm going to start adding some scale accessories here and there, but for the most part, this will just be more of an electronics, winch lighting. And I'm still waiting for my leaf spring kit. Can't wait to get that in. I believe I just got an email said it cleared customs, so I should have that maybe tomorrow or the next day. So look forward to that. And then I'll have to figure out what shocks I want to use on this and just kind of start tuning the suspension. But so let's get into this winch install and figure out the mount, and then we'll go into the wiring and the setup in the controller. I'll show you guys. I'll figure out off camera the settings in the controller, and then I'll come back in and show you how I have them set up. Okay, so centering this, the attachment point here is not the greatest. I'm debating whether or not I want to do an extra piece of plastic plate under there to mount this, or I'd like to get at least 4 screws in here. I'm gonna have to drill some holes in that slot. The existing holes here don't really match up, but I might be able to sneak a screw in the side there with a washer on it just as an additional little hold down point. So let me get this bottom plate off and see how things line up. Okay, so here's what I got figured out using the original holes that were there already. I'm just going to put a screw with a washer on there just to kind of help hold it down, hold it in place from shifting around. I did have to make like a slight little notch in the metal mounting plate there just so the screw would fit in. And then I drilled new holes down through here. And I'm going to use a M2.5 going down through there, and these will all have nuts on the bottom. So I think that's going to do. Okay, so here is what I ended up with. I still need to route the wiring, but it is extremely secure. It was tricky, I'm not going to lie. I'll show you underneath here real quick. I think these outer ones, if you go from the bottom up and put the nut on top, it's going to make life a lot easier. Possibly these two. This is all going to depend on what winch you get, guys. So you got to just figure out a mounting system. Maybe you want to make a small plate that mounts onto the chassis first, and then you can put the screws into the winch plate. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but just take your time and measure things out, and you'll figure it out. So here's where I ended up as far as the winch control goes with this. As I mentioned, I wanted to have a way to prevent an accidental activation of the winch because it's happened to me in the past, and I wanted to kind of have like a little fail-safe here. Luckily, I found some info on how to do that. So how this works right now is if I set this, I have this 3-way switch here set to my winch. So if I push it forward, it's going to, just for a way to remember in my mind, if I push the switch forward, it's going to pull the vehicle forward. If I push the switch back, it's going to let the vehicle either roll back or just let the winch line out. So if I want to let the winch line out here, I flip this switch and then I click my little push button here, and that becomes my winch activation. So there's no way, I would really have to do something stupid to accidentally activate that. And then to bring it back in, flip the switch forward and activate it via the clicker button here. And of course, if it's in neutral, it doesn't do anything. So that worked out really well. Let me show you these settings just on the off chance you have a radio link. I don't know how you would do this with other controllers, but it should be possible. I thought initially I would have to use channel mixing, but the Radio Link does have another feature I'm going to show you guys right now. But if you have a different brand controller, you can probably figure this out through some channel mixing. I highly recommend doing this. It's a good way to save you from the trouble of burning out your winch motor or snapping something. So the easy part was I just set this
switch here, which is SWC. I set this to my auxiliary channel 5, which is where I have my winch controller plugged in, and this did come with a little controller along with the winch. So that was the easy part. So I set up just standard, set the auxiliary channel to 5 to this switch, and the winch worked just like that. There was really no other setup. So then I went back in here to the setup, and if you go to number 13, you'll see that's dual rate. And essentially the dual rate, you can set it to switch D, and then if you come down to channel 5, I drop that from 100 down to 0, and how it works, you see how that changes? When I press in the SWD switch here for channel 5, it changes it from a 0 to 100. So essentially this has 0 dual rate, so this is pretty much disabled until you click this, and then it brings this back up to 100. Now, I'm sure you can kind of play around with the settings, but I don't think you really need to have this change from 0 to anything more than 100. So it just kind of defaults to 100, and that's it. That's exactly how that works. Getting into the lighting, I'm just powering these off of a 9-volt battery for the time being, just to test them, see how they look. I think they look great. I'm gonna get these going for sure. This is basically a 3mm LED and a 5mm LED, both red, and they quite easily snap into place here. So we'll take the 3mm, put it in the small one, and it just clicks in. So if this proves to be a little bit of an unreliable connection, I'll take a little bit of E6000 or some shoe goo and put a little bit of goo around there. It might be a good idea anyway, just to keep water and debris from getting in there. But for now, let's just go with that. It's pretty simple. And I'm gonna wire all of these up as neatly as possible. It's a lot of very thin wiring. It's a little bit tedious as far as, you know, I do like to solder everything. It just makes a better connection, and do a little shrink wrap tubing, and I'll make like a neat little kind of wire harness. I'm gonna try to run down, it down the inside of the chassis rail here, although I'm probably gonna have to put on some type of a connector here, like a quick release, like a little JST connector or something, just because if and when I want to remove the body from the chassis, I'd like to be able to just easily disconnect it. So that shouldn't be too hard. I'll show you guys at the end what I came up with. These side marker lights here, there is a little provision inside. There is a little hole there. It doesn't really have like this same type of snap-in connector for the LED, and they are pretty difficult to get to. The ones in the front here, if you can see right down in there, whoop. If you can see this right down in there, you see that little hole. It's a tough one. That's a tough spot to put something in. I'd have to glue it. I'm not positive. Let me look at that a little closer and see if I can do something easily. It's also in a bad spot to run the wiring. To try to run the wiring neatly through this channel is gonna be a little tough, and then you run the risk of it getting caught up on the wheel. It's not great. I don't know. I may actually just skip those for now and just be happy with the headlights, the tail lights. I do wanna get some lights rigged up on the front of this rack here, and of course I do wanna get these little driving light pods hooked up again, but I think I'm gonna just find a replacement for those, because the stock ones do tend to snap off pretty easily. So maybe I'll just live with that and not even connect these. I think this is just gonna be quite a hassle to get these working properly and looking correct, so that the LED doesn't sit wonky in there or something. It's just, neither one of them are easy to get to. You got to pull apart a lot of stuff on the inside to get to this. I don't know, maybe somewhere down the road, but I think for now I can be happy with these not working. Here's what we got going on for taillights. I mentioned 3mm, 5mm, soldered everything up, a little bit of shrink wrap tubing, went into a splitter here. Not a splitter, but just, you know, all these wires went into 2 wires. Those went into a JST connector so I can easily detach the body from the chassis. From here, went up into a Futaba style servo type connector. And all this is, I think I cut this off of a dead servo and I just removed the signal wire and just leave the positive and negative, and that's all you need for lighting. And I covered it with this fancy mesh wire loom that I'm going to run down the inside of the chassis rail here just to keep it neat. And then this is the switch that's now coming from my receiver. I have it plugged into channel 6, and on my controller I assigned a little clicker button, and this works as a lighting controller, and it also has 8 different ports that you can plug lights into. These are pretty cheap. I think they're like 14, 15 bucks on Amazon. If you're ordering from AliExpress, you can find them for like 8 bucks. And you can plug a JST style connector in here. The side-to-side distance is fine. However, they're pretty thick, so you end up losing. You could only do like every other port on here with the JST style. So that's why I adapted from a JST over to a servo style. So this fits directly in here, and I can plug in up to 8 different lights. And this is really cool because you can easily add more lighting down the road. So I mentioned at some point I want to get some spotlights up on my roof rack up in the front here, and same deal, I can just make a little wire harness and run it down and plug it directly in. This does also, I'll show you in a minute, this does have, I guess, it's off, on, and then it also has a flashing mode. So if you're into that, it's fine. Doesn't do too much else other than that, but for an inexpensive light controller, this is really one of my favorites just because it's super easy to add on additional lighting. So let's get this buttoned up and I'll show you guys the results. Okay, I didn't go crazy zip tying all the wiring because of course I'm gonna be removing this body to do my next mod, which is the leaf spring kit. But here we go. So basically lights are off. Click, we got the flashing mode here, or we got the steady mode, and in the rear, we got taillights. I think they look awesome. So off, flashing, on. You know, I'm not too into doing the whole brake light, reverse light, turn signal kind of thing. I think it's just a little too much. I just like to have the lights on or off, and I think this looks great. I really like this. I'll find a permanent home to mount this guy here, somewhere along the fender. I want to get some inner fender wells just to cover up so you don't see in underneath and see all the wiring and the motor and stuff. If you have any recommendations, if you guys have done those, let me know which ones you like. I've seen some 3D printed ones. Of course, the stock headlights here, same style Futaba connector, plugs right in, and no problem, just pay attention. It is marked there, signal, positive and negative. You don't need to do anything with the signal wire. You really just need the positive and negative. I don't even know why they included that. I'm not sure if this can control another controller. I don't know what they were thinking, but you don't need that wire, so just plug this in this orientation here with the outer one here is negative, and it works great. I mean, I don't know why that always makes me happy, just to be able to turn the lights on and off. It's such a cool feature. Super loud stock servo. So I ended up changing my controller for my lights just to this switch here. Simply for the reason, there's another feature on the radio link I want to show you guys, and shout out to Crawler Canyon for doing a video on this. So it's called Idle Up, and what this is a feature that was put into this radio for gas-powered, like nitro vehicles, but it has a cool use for an electric vehicle too. Let me get my lights on here so they look cooler. But you can set this to operate as a cruise control. So I'm not going to touch the trigger, right? I have this set to, and you could change the percentage. You can change the speed of the cruise control you want. I'll just click this button, and look, you have cruise control. So if you want to set this to a faster, like walking speed, so you don't have to have your finger on the trigger the whole time you're going down a trail to get to your favorite crawling spot, you know, you can just pop this thing into whatever percentage you want. It's easy to get into there and change the percentage. If you want to set this to an extremely slow crawl for like creeping down steep hills, that would work pretty well too. Or if you want to just set it to a very low crawling speeds for just, you know, ascending steep climbs for like really precise control. If you have like really jittery fingers or something and you want super precise control, that could be a pretty cool feature. So yeah, you have a cruise control that, let me just show you how you set this up. You go into, let's go up here on the bench. You go into, let me get out of this. Number 10 is idle up. And if you enter that, so now on this rig, because the motor rotation is reversed, I believe, however, I had to set it up in my, oh man, you might have to go back and look. I forgot how I set it up in my ESC, but if you end up, if this ends up putting you backwards, you might have to reverse this setup. But when I messed with the rate, it worked, but I didn't have any throttle after that. So I ended up having to adjust throttle lock, and see how it says SWA, that's this switch here. That's A, it's the only one you have an option to set it to. So I ended up using throttle lock, and you can go positive or negative on this. So if I go positive, it ends up making the truck go in reverse. So I had to just go into the negative setting, and this is where you set your percentage of how fast you want it to go. So the higher the number, the faster it's gonna go. If you set this to 100%, it's gonna give you 100% forward throttle. Right now it's at 15%, and you could go in here and mess around with this, and it's not super difficult to get into. If you wanted to change this on a trail, you just go into your settings here. It'll go to your last deal here, and then you can just change your speed that you want your cruise control to work at. But I think it's a really cool feature just to have as an option. Easy way to add almost like a little grill effect to this little top portion of the hood here. Just use some Gorilla Tape. See how it has a little bit of a pattern to it as well. Just put it up in there, kind of cut it out with a hobby knife, and good to go. I think it looks cool. So you get a little bit of a pattern there. Doesn't exactly match the, you know, but it's good enough. From here, you can't tell. Also taking a minute here to do a little bit of detailing, just some window trim, and I'm just using a fine tip black Sharpie paint marker. Just go around with some alcohol, clean it up nice, and there is like a groove on the body here that you can just follow along. You will have a little bit of the body color towards the glass, and you'll have to do like a second pass. So you need a bit of a steady hand, but it's not as bad as you think. And if you do kind of go outside of the border here, just take a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and rub it off, and it'll come off fairly easily. So let me finish up this, but I think it's a big improvement. I still need to do the back, but when you see this side, kind of, you don't realize how plain it looks until you see it with the trim done. Around here is a little bit tougher. I did kind of get the edges. I'm not gonna go too crazy. I'd rather have a little bit less. It's tough. You do start getting it on the glass. I guess, honestly, if you take the glass out, maybe that's what I'll do at some point when I have the body more apart. Maybe I'll pull the glass out from inside and finish doing the trim around it, just to kind of neaten it up a little bit. But I mean, the doors would be easy because you can just pull them out from here. Maybe I'll do that real quick now. So let's see. This is a good test of have I had too much coffee today? So yeah, there's this little groove here that you can follow and end up with a very neat, precise line. You do still have some blue around the inside that you need to come back, and then a little bit more like freehand. So that's a little bit tougher. The initial one is fairly easy. You just take the glass out. Yeah, I mean, I should just take the damn glass out. Let me do that real quick. The glass comes out pretty easily. 4 of the tiniest little Phillips screws you're gonna find, and just carefully just pop it out. But that allows you to really get in and do the trim pretty easily. Really happy with how that turned out. And look, if you don't have the most steady hand, get your wife, girlfriend, one of your kids, you know, someone that's into that. This would be a fun project for them. Get them involved a little bit. Maybe pull out the glass for them and just have them kind of carefully go around, and it looks a hell of a lot better. Yeah, decided to pull all the glass out here, make it a little bit neater. Who remembers the, maybe it was just local to my area, Earl Scheib. I think back in the 80s, I'll paint any car for $99.95. He had commercials all over. And the bonus with that is he would just paint your weather stripping and everything the same color as your car. So that's nice. Oh man, I'm getting lots of paint. There's a bad angle to do this, but that's all right. I'll wipe it off with some alcohol. Yeah, that's fine. So pretty basic stuff as far as details go, but I'll get more into it at some point. But I think it looks way better. Let me know what you guys think, if this is something you're gonna do. I'd recommend, look, if you really want to take the time, definitely take out as many windows as you can. It just makes it that much easier, but you can really hit most of this with a fine tip Sharpie, and it's gonna come out nice. I think it's a huge improvement. That's gonna do it for the mods in this video, guys. I think we accomplished a lot. We have a working winch with kind of a redundant safety switch here. We have working light switch with taillights, and now we have cruise control. So really liking how this is turning out. I mentioned I'm gonna order up some lights for up here, something that I can mount to the rack itself, and I'll plug that into my lighting controller. I'm also gonna order up some new running lights here. I think it's just gonna be easier than trying to attach the stock ones. And I think that's gonna do it for lighting for now. I might add an interior light. I have one on my Gen 9. It's pretty cool because if you have driver figures in there and you're running it, you're running in like shady conditions, you can kind of see the interior better a little bit. It is kind of cool. So we'll see if I can figure out a good spot for that. And that's gonna do it. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to hit like if you appreciate this video, and stay tuned. Coming up, leaf spring installation. I'll see you in the next video. Later.